Slow down, lay your burden down. Slow down, lay with me a while.
Hey, this is Dan, and welcome to episode 2 of Divergent Paths. It's been really cool to hear back from those of you who downloaded and listened to the first episode with Dave Whitwell, and I very much appreciate the support I've gotten from many people. I'm really happy. Over 200 downloads of the first episode, 5 different countries rather, and it's really cool to have something that I'm putting together go out to people and to hear back that people are enjoying it. It's funny. I've been running into a bit of a problem that I didn't anticipate. As it turns out, musicians like talking about what they're working on, and of course, I love talking to people about what they're working on. So. It turned out to be a little bit easier to schedule people than I anticipated. And so within about the next week, I will have episodes recorded to release all the way through the end of October, which is certainly not something I had thought of as being a possibility. I thought it would be, you know, people are busy, and so it takes a while to work out schedules, but it's been really great. I've talked to a lot of great people, and I'm looking forward to sharing these episodes with the listeners. And yeah, it's really great. So this week's episode is my friend Katie Garringer, who is a delightful singer and songwriter and oboist, originally from Indiana, but has been living in Cincinnati for the past few years. And she was in New York for a week, and I said, hey, let's talk about what you're doing. And so she's been working the folk scene in Cincinnati for a bit, and she came to New York to kind of check out what was going on, and she, we had a good time. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but she had a bit of a time getting here, got in a car wreck, had to take a bus the rest of the way, and there for a bit there I was thinking that maybe she wouldn't make it, and I was really concerned. I mean, yeah, I was worried about her safety because I am a good person despite what people might say, but I was worried that the recording wouldn't work out, but everything was great. Everything worked out. It was a good time. And yeah. So you've already heard it, but she is the artist behind my new theme song. It's a beautiful song called Slow Down. And I'm really happy that she so graciously agreed to record it and let me use it. And she also has a song on at the end of the interview. So stick around for that. And if you like what you hear, check her out on Facebook. It's Katie Garringer, is Garringer. Katie spelled the normal way. And she's also on SoundCloud. Same thing, Katie Garringer. And if you want to check her out on Twitter, it's KatGar88, KatGar88. So please listen to her music. It's really great. She has an EP coming out in September, and it's just good music. That's what it comes down to. So listen to it, support her, and I hope you enjoy our talk. Thanks, guys.
Slow down.
So, I'm not gonna lie. When I initially opened up Facebook and saw that you had wrecked your car, my first thought was, damn it, I'm gonna have to find someone else to interview. Not a joke. Completely true.
Oh.
And then I felt bad. And
But you're still wondering, who am I going to interview?
a little bit. And then it all turned out fine. But it was kind of a awkward 2 minutes after I found that out. So
It was awkward for both of us, man.
well, I mean, I guess a little more awkward for you than for me, but
Perhaps.
So you're the first person I'm talking to who's not, and even have tried to get on here that's not straight up New York freelancer. You're all hardcore Midwest, Miss Midwest, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the deal with that? Like,
What's the deal with that?
why have you stayed there so long?
Oh, well, I mean, I was in school, and then I just decided to stay in Cincinnati for a year to try to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And that year's up now, and I'm trying to get the hell out of there.
I mean, would it be so bad if you stayed there for...
No, not at all. I think that I'm pretty plugged in to my area as far as gigs are concerned, and I have a lot of wonderful musician and non-musician friends there, but I'm definitely feeling a little bit like the Midwest is a sort of vacuum that doesn't want to let its people out all of the time, so I'm just trying to...
That is definitely what the Midwest is.
Yes.
I lived there for 4 years and spent an additional 3 summers there besides that, and it's cool for a month.
Yeah.
But after a few years, it's a little rough. So right now you're kind of really pushing with your songwriting and your singing and performing, but your entire life you were doing something different. So first of all, where did you start out with music?
Well, I started piano lessons when I was 6, and I had always been intensely interested in music, but it wasn't even up until, I think it was my senior year of high school, I decided I wanted to go into music. But I wanted to do music education. So, yeah. So I...
hey, music education
no, I love
in the
teaching.
Midwest, it's a big business.
It is, yeah.
Like, a high percentage of the people musicians who come out of the Midwest, they go to whatever university, they study music ed, and then they become successful band teachers because there's always call for more of them.
Yeah, and I thought I was going to join those ranks, but then I actually started going to school for it and realized pretty quickly that I loved performing way more than studying curriculums and planning lessons. So I was getting pretty into the oboe at that point in time, so I switched to oboe performance for my 3rd year at Ball State. And
But you started there as music education.
I did, yeah, for 2 years. I did 2 years in music ed.
So back further even than that, I mean, while most people, know somewhere in their subconscious they've seen an oboe, and obviously, yeah, it's one of the more visible instruments in an orchestra. It's not something that you generally start on or that you're encouraged to start on even. How did that start out? Are your parents musicians or musically inclined? Was there a lot of music at home? How did that pan out? Like,
yes to a lot of those questions. My parents are both really great it's kind of like layman musicians. They don't pursue it professionally, but they're both very musical and have great voices. So I grew up listening to them sing, and grew up in church, so I listened to a lot of that music and got a lot of my like impromptu vocal training from just singing every Sunday at church. And then I started oboe in 6th grade, and I had wanted to play the flute because my mom had played the flute, but she's like, "Oh, Katie, everyone plays the flute. You don't want to play the flute. You should play the oboe instead." And I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was the bassoon. And I was like, "I don't want to play the bassoon." But I thought it was the oboe. So then I went to this like instrument petting zoo thing, tried the oboe, and they said I had a good embouchure for it. So that's what, that was kind of the clincher for that.
I'm pretty sure a lot of that is these people telling the
people to play the oboe.
Or just people telling kids what they want to hear.
Yeah.
You know, oh, this is cool. Oh, well, you've got the perfect face for it. I remember I had a similar situation. So I was in 3rd grade, and, you know, I was pretty far down the list of people who were going, because you could try whatever instrument you wanted. Mm-hmm. And you weren't even really trying the instrument. You were just trying the mouthpiece. Like, it was, it was pretty, and because I was far down the list, and all of the boys in front of me were like, "I want to play trumpet." And of course, I wanted to be like my friends. I wanted to play trumpet. And I get up there and try buzzing the mouthpiece. And it was, you know, I made some sound. And then they were like, "Oh, how about you try trombone?" And so I did. And they're like, "Oh, your mouth is way better for that." In retrospect, I realized that that's more of them trying to not have 35 boys playing trumpet in 3rd and 4th grade.
That's probably wise on their part.
I mean, I understand why. I just think it's, you know, I always think it's funny whenever people talk about that kind of starting. So anyway, with regard, so you started oboe when you were 6th grade. Like, did you like it? Did you like practicing it? I mean, it kind of beats up your face a little bit.
It does. It was definitely frustrating, and continued to be, and is still frustrating. But I think I started listening to some really great oboists, and I kind of was able to see, even though I was young, that if I stuck with it, that there would definitely be great reward if I could just get to, you know, a certain point with it and get past the duckiness that is a beginning oboe player.
Yeah, there's beginning oboe players. Kind of the worst.
Aww. They're doing the best they can.
From an auditory standpoint, it's a phase that everyone has to go through if they want to play oboe.
The struggle's real, though.
But I mean, it's cool, you know. And now, oboe is with the advent of shows like Mozart in the Jungle, you're getting, which is, you know, centered around an orchestral oboe player of all things. Like, people are starting to be like, so that's kind of how that goes. Yeah. I mean, it's still going to be a mystery, but maybe a few more people will try playing it.
I think the funniest thing about that show is the very first episode I watched. I think it was the pilot. She's working on reeds on a horse-drawn carriage. It's like, well, that's a stretch.
little bit of the knife slippage going on.
Yeah.
You don't want to cut off a thumb, even. No. But would you cut off one of your fingers if you could make a perfect reed every time?
No.
No? You'd
No, because I feel like it's like brushing your teeth.
Obviously, that's a ridiculous question.
Yes. No, I think, there's a giant learning curve, and you can get to a point where I'd say like 60% of what you make is something that's usable. And if you can learn to take your emotions out of the equation, reed making is a lot easier because you don't get as frustrated. But I think a lot of what we get into as oboists and really as musicians in general is we tend to let whatever our work, let however our work is going that day reflect on us as a person. And so if I have a bad read day, it's really tempting for me to view myself as like less of a human. But if you can learn to like not do that, then it's easier, and read making becomes easier because you're not putting as much pressure on yourself. It's a battle.
Yeah, I'm glad it's a battle I don't have to deal with. I don't have to worry about, I don't have to go in my room and be like, oh, here's my lathe, here's my chunk of metal, here's my mouthpiece blank. Let's see what comes out today. Maybe it'll be something good.
You know, oddly, reed making can be therapeutic in the way that, you know, it's very formulaic, and even though each piece of cane is different, there are a series of steps that you do every single time. And so if you have a few hours to do it, especially if you're not like scrambling getting ready for a gig, if you just have a few hours one evening just to make reeds, it can actually be pretty nice. You put on some music and you just kind of like zone out a little bit and scrape away.
And, you know, you can always get friends together and you can all do it.
We do.
Good time.
Yeah.
I always thought that was one of the more funny things.
I know.
In a music,
Reed
in a music,
parties.
well, in a music school community, definitely, or in particular.
Yeah.
You know, there's reed making lessons with your teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's a double major. I feel like being an oboist is a double
studio
major.
classes where there's like 10 oboists all hanging out making reeds while their teacher supervises, and it's a little bit overwhelming for someone who doesn't even have to ever consider that.
Have you ever like welded your own mouthpiece?
Of course not.
No.
Before, I'm not even much of a gearhead. A lot of brass players very much into like always trying out new things, trying out new combinations. In fact, my teacher, Dave Taylor, is very much about the switching around, trying out new sounds, but he knows exactly down to like the smallest degree exactly what he wants and how to get it. Whereas me, you know, I like what I play on. Before about 18 months ago, I'd played on the same mouthpiece and trombone combination for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, made no alterations. And then, you know, after a while, sometimes you realize your body, not chemistry. Like I lost a lot of weight, so the way the brass resonates, the way, you know, just the dimensions of your face, all that changes when you lose weight. So, and your body just continues changing after, you know, up to a certain point. Yeah. And you know, you eventually may think you want to try something else, and maybe that'll work. But anyway, that's enough of that brass garbage. That's real fascinating. So you've spent 15 years of your life playing oboe. Yeah. And you still play, right? I mean, you still gig. Yeah, in Cincinnati, you still perform regularly.
Not as regularly on the oboe. Definitely very regularly with singing songwriting right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get into that.
Right.
But I'm curious about, like, because you spent all this time learning a very difficult instrument with a lot of extenuating factors that make learning that instrument even harder. Yeah. With just the difficulty, the level of difficulty of playing it, and the everything that goes along with that. So you spent all this time and money learning and getting degrees playing oboe. Yeah. So why move away from that, basically?
Well, I would say it's hard to explain. So I developed a lot of mental blocks, and I would say developed a lot of insecurities about myself throughout my time studying the oboe. And, you know, as you know, mentality is so much of the battle, and if you have a good mentality, then you're, pretty much good to go as far as performing is concerned. But I had a really traumatic experience after my master's degree, and I had been preparing for this audition that I thought I was like created to be in. I thought I was supposed to be in this ensemble up in Chicago.
What ensemble was it?
It was the Fifth House Ensemble.
Okay.
And on paper they do everything that I have always ever wanted to do. They do inner city music outreach. They go into all kinds of schools and do programs for them, and it's chamber music, and I love playing chamber music. I definitely love playing chamber music more than I enjoy playing in the orchestra. But so I went and I got ready for this audition, and I thought I had really prepared very well, but I realized retrospect that my goal the whole time was just to be good enough. And that was kind of my mentality throughout my whole time going to school for oboe, was I just need to be good enough. I just need to be good enough. My goal was not to just make beautiful music or to like bring joy to people through music. And so I had this audition and it went very poorly, and I almost quit the oboe.
And when was this?
This was like a year and a few months ago, so towards the end of May
in 2014.
Yeah. And I let myself stop playing for about a month just to kind of take a breather and just figure out what exactly it was that I was supposed to do from there. And I realized pretty quickly that I was very miserable with zero music in my life, because I've always played the piano, but I wasn't even really playing that. And so I just kind of sat down one day and I was just messing around, and all of a sudden like a song started. And I had never really leaned towards, wanting to compose. I never thought that I could. I never really wanted to, but these melodies just kind of started happening, and I realized pretty quickly that I felt kind of like a music therapy happening, just like writing this music and coming up with these melodies. And so after a couple weeks of doing that, I sat one of my friends down and played one of my songs for him, and he was like, "This doesn't suck." So, and I realized that I wasn't nervous to play my songs for people, and I couldn't figure that out. It just felt more natural. It's always felt more natural for me over this past year, just to share something that I've created, as opposed to me playing an orchestra excerpt for someone, which that was the main reason I think why I suffered from oboe, was I had such intense performance anxiety, and I could never seem to wrap my mind around the right way to go about preparing for orchestra auditions without feeling really nervous. But basically what I'm trying to say is this singing and the songwriting calmed me down, and through that I've realized that I actually enjoy singing more than I do playing the oboe. But a good thing has happened in that now when I go to play the oboe, I'm not as nervous anymore, because I feel like I'm more in touch with my own personal voice. I'm able to actually sing through my oboe now, which is actually the point.
Right. Well, you brought up an interesting point about the concept of practicing and preparing so you're good enough, which, well, let me approach this from a different angle. I mean, you and I have known each other for about 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. We've performed together in orchestras. We've been friends, and I've heard you play on various occasions, and you always sounded great. But when you are in a conservatory situation, you went to Cincinnati College Conservatory, and mm-hmm. It's a great school. And most of these schools are great schools. They have great teachers. But even the most liberal school that wants to push its musicians as far afield as possible into various different things, you still
it's a decades old mentality of hitting these certain waymarks on your way to musical success. You prepare your excerpts. You become the principal in your conservatory orchestra. You graduate. You might be doing some chamber music and some weddings on the side, but your final goal is you audition. And that's enough for then. And then your next goal is advance. Yeah. And then that's enough for then. And then eventually, supposedly, you do that enough times and you advance into the finals of an audition a couple times. And then you'll be good enough to make it into an orchestra. And you'll be good enough to take your place with the great musicians of our time, if you will. And it's strange because it's such a regimented step-by-step process, if you will, although it has become blurred a little bit lately, or in the past few 15, 20 years. You end up with a lot of students who sit in the practice rooms and they do become good enough, and they might end up winning the job, but it doesn't always, sometimes it's great, but it doesn't always translate as well musically as you would like. You have people playing note perfect excerpts and playing whatever orchestral standard perfectly, and guess what? It's good enough. You go to an orchestra concert, it's good enough. But sometimes there's just something missing. But that's neither here nor there. It's probably not going to, it's going to take a long time. And I don't know whether that should necessarily change. It does produce a lot of good musicians. Maybe not that many versatile musicians, but it's going to be that way for a while yet. Right. So you said that transitioning into this more singer-songwriter driven career path, if you will, has made it easier for you to play oboe again. Now, yes. What was it like going back to oboe after taking a break? Was it strange? Were you kind of like, you know how sometimes when you break up with someone, like the next time you see them, you're like not actively angry at them, but you're kind of like circling around each other, like
that is totally what it felt like.
What do I say? I don't want to give them the wrong idea, and I don't hate you, but I'm really much happier now that I'm not around you every day.
That's funny. No, I mean, I really did feel like a bit of a breakup, and I've thought about this in the way of like, have you heard like the 7-year rule? Like if a marriage can make it past like 7 years, then they're more likely to stay together. But seven years is when a lot of marriages fall apart. And so
there's a Marilyn Monroe movie based around that very concept.
Right. But I realized because it took me 5 years to do my undergrad, and then because of my major switch, and then I did 2 years for my master's. So I was like at the end of my 7th year, and I was feeling burnt out. And I think it was actually very healthy for me to take a step away from the oboe for a while. And I ended up taking off, I think it was like 2 months initially. And then I haven't played a ton this past year, but it's pretty amazing. Like whenever I come back to it, I give myself a few days before a gig to get my face back and to get my fingers feeling like more comfortable. But it feels like I never stopped now, because so much of my so many of the mental blocks that I had let build up during my time in school have just been completely knocked down, and so I just don't overthink things as much anymore. And it just makes it easier to play. So. Well,
I mean, 7 years of making one thing your life would burn anyone out.
Yeah.
It's not surprising. But if so much of the actual operation of the instrument itself is engineering in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not how you should approach playing music, but a lot of it is, oh, well, you do this and this and this. So, I mean, those things, after spending 15 for you or 17 or 18 for me, like you spend this many years doing something, it's not gonna, you're not gonna lose it.
Right.
Unless you like take years off.
Yeah.
And even then, you'll retain a lot of it.
Yeah.
All right, so you've basically been writing songs for what, a year now?
Yeah, a little over a year.
That's it. Like you'd never, like before you had this huge shift. I mean, like what were you exposed to a lot of music in this kind of? Your music is very folk driven, pretty spare. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I mean, when you're playing with your band, it's a little different. Mm-hmm. But even then, a lot of your songs are mellow, very, like I said, very folky. In a good way. I'm not using that as any kind of pejorative.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. You have a great ear for beautiful melodies.
Thank you.
But my question is like when you were younger, were you consistently exposed to things in that style? Because you're especially in this trip to New York, you're very much in the style of like the troubadour artist, straight like in the style of the great New York folk singers of the 50s and 60s who came from places to make their lives. So were you exposed to that young? I mean, do you take inspiration from that? I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can take inspiration from it.
Of course. I really, it was weird. I remember when I was, I think I was like 13 years old. At that point in time, I was like really into Christian music. And
I was there at one point.
And I was, I'd only been taking piano for like a few years at that point, but I remember like laying in bed, and I've always journaled, so I've always journaled, but I had never really come up with many melodies. But I remember writing these like rhymed poems and lyrics and thinking like these could be songs when I'm like 13. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a conversation with my dad and telling him like, Dad, I think I'm supposed to be a singer. And this is when I was 13. And then, this like right about like when I started the oboe, and I just kind of like set it aside and never really viewed it as something that was realistic. But during that whole time, I had always loved listening to music that I could just sing along to. Sorry. I loved listening to music that I could sing along to. And so I didn't really start to get into folk music per se until probably college. But I always had struggled with, doing my listening homework. Listening to all the symphonies, and there are so many that I love, and I do love listening to classical music, but my inclination was always to listen to people that I loved the sound of their voice, or just listening to my favorite singer-songwriters, things that I could sing along to, things that I could harmonize with. I always loved harmonizing with my favorite singers. So dreaming about singing with them one day.
What were some of those artists that really started pushing you in that direction?
Well, Josh Ritter is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved him for a few years now, and I just really enjoy how rootsy he is. Mm-hmm. There's just nothing about him that is not authentic. And Brandi Carlile is another one. I just really enjoy kind of like the rustic quality to her voice, and just her story too. She ran away from home essentially when she was like a teenager and had a very interesting beginning to her career. But and just the old greats like Emmylou Harris, Dolly Parton, several others.
How do you think your the entirety of your background in classical music informs your songwriting? Like what elements of being a performer in a very high stress environment, such as classical music, how does that translate? What things do you take from that when you get up in front of a crowd of, you know, a couple hundred people and play something that you've written?
Yeah. Well, on, you know, just the basic writing level, I'd say just the fact that I played, you know, oboe is a melodic instrument. So just having listened to so many of those oboe melodies, having played so many oboe melodies, I think for me, when I write songs, you know, the lyrics, number one, are the most important thing to me, but two, the melodic line is the second most important thing to me. So I think that all of my oboe training really comes out through my melodies, because I think that I take time to, you know, craft ones that I would like to listen to. And then as far as performing is concerned, it's interesting because even though I was a performance major for 7 years, and, you know, I did performing before that, I really feel like I finally learned how to perform well just in this past year by going to open mics every single week. And I think there's only been 1 week, and I think since October, there's only been 1 week, and it was around Christmas time, that I didn't go to an open mic. So I've gone to an open mic somewhere, wherever I am, for the last several months. And I think that if I could change anything about my time in school for performance, is that I wish that I would have performed more, because, you know, we have one recital every semester, and we, you know, build up the hype for it, and we allow ourselves to get really, really nervous for it, and it's just this one thing. But I wish that maybe we could have like a couple recitals every semester, and I know that, you know, logistically that's difficult, finding a space and a pianist and the time to practice all that music, but I wish that I could have performed more, and part of that was on me. I'm sure I could have found more performance opportunities, but yeah, I think, you know, I don't know that my time in school as a performance major really
Prepared you for performing?
Yeah, I mean, really.
It's at Manus, where I went, done there forever, hopefully.
Yeah.
If you're an undergrad, for juniors and seniors, not required to do a recital. The only people who are required to do recitals are master's students and performance diploma students. And while some of that is because of the comparative lack of performance space, Manus has been in small buildings almost since its inception in 1916. So like there's part of it that, but you're putting out about 100 or so people every year who have never been required to put together a recital. Now, that being said, a lot of people do it anyway.
Yeah.
I did it. You know, a lot of the musicians that I came through with, who I respect and who are excellent performers, they did it because, well, you know, you got to create your own performances. If you're not, you know, that's a concept that holds across everything of performing. If you want to perform, you have to create opportunities for yourself. You're just not used to having to do it when you're in school. Usually there's people saying, you have to do this. So, you know, in that way you kind of, you know, you push yourself. People make you push yourself. But in a way, you kind of in a situation like that, you kind of get a handle on who's really wanting to do work.
Definitely.
Like the people who are putting together their own things. Yeah. But yes, of course, sorry, I kind of digressed there.
Right. No, you're totally right there.
So, what's the scene like in Cincinnati? You're kind of in like a specific genre. You've kind of placed yourself there, at least for now. And I'm always seeing pictures and hearing recordings from your performances at the different clubs you play in Cincinnati. So what's the scene like there? You know, the good people, good music. What's going on?
Yes, absolutely. There's so much good music in Cincinnati. It's kind of like a little big city. You know, it's not a big city, but it's definitely, there's a high concentration of talent there. And I meet new people almost weekly, new musicians that I've never heard before. And it's been really great. I definitely feel like I have a community of musician friends there that all have forever. And, there's definitely like, I don't want to say like a little open mic club, but because there are lots of us who are regulars at a few of these open mics, but it's always great to see them every single week and to hear what their new songs, but it's also great to just hear like all the the random people that come in every week that are new or are even just there to like do covers or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've met a lot of really wonderful bands and people whose music that I'm definitely gonna listen to for as long as they're making music.
It's one thing I always think about with performing musicians, working musicians. Most people who know me know that I'm really, really into comedy. In addition to being into music, that's what pays my bills. The music, not the comedy.
Right.
I'm funny for free. But it's really interesting, the life of a freelance musician or a young performer very closely parallels. You can most jobs conceptually kind of parallel each other, but stand-up comedy and music almost directly parallel each other. I mean, for singer-songwriters, obviously you're doing the same kind of gigs. You're doing open mics, and then you do feature spots, and then you do, then eventually you'll start headlining.
Yep.
And that's like note for note exactly the same as you have to. So you kind of spend your time paying your dues, and then you kind of work your way up. So what is your sense of your timeline of like dues paying?
Right.
Have you gotten a vibe from musicians where you're mostly playing like that there's a pecking order of people, and these people have been paying their dues longer and they do their things, but you're just down here at the bottom, you stay there for a while and maybe we'll let you up the ladder in a little bit?
I guess I don't feel that at all in Cincinnati. I think part of it is I've just become so comfortable there, which is part of
the problem.
Why I want to leave. I love it so much, and I definitely feel like I've cut my teeth there as far as performing and really just being fearless and giving my music out, just singing new songs every week. But I think, it's time for me to probably try to go on to the next place, into a more competitive atmosphere where I do get a little nervous again.
What would be your say you were playing? Let me backtrack.
Okay.
You're in New York now.
Mm-hmm.
First time you've ever been here.
Mm-hmm.
And you were taking this opportunity to kind of get a feel for the city, perform as much as you can. You're only here for a week. And it's a very different feel from anywhere in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Even the large cities of the Midwest like Chicago and Detroit, very different feel. Very competitive. So let's say you're playing someplace here in the city, and you play your songs, and someone comes up to you and is like, "Oh, you're pretty good, but maybe you should have spent more time incubating back in middle of nowhere," or say something like, "You're fine, but who cares?" Like what? And that probably happens to people. That happens to people every week.
I'm sure.
Not just here, in a lot of places with thriving music scenes. What is your response to that? Why do you feel that you're ready to move on to a larger market?
Part of this whole singing songwriting journey for me has been recognizing that I'm not doing this for affirmation that I'm good, or I guess, that I'm good enough. And for me, these songs are just kind of like a pure expression of myself, and my goal every time I get up is to hopefully have one of my songs resonate with someone. Hopefully more than one person, but if someone were to take time out of their day to come up and tell me that, then I guess I wouldn't take it. I would definitely try not to take it personally. It would probably rustle my feathers a little bit, but I wouldn't like turn around and go home. Because everyone's going to have an opinion, and I know that I'm sure there are people that have heard my stuff that don't like it, and that's fine. Or I know personally, like, I'm aware that I don't have a lot of my songs memorized yet, and so I definitely feel that, like, I put that pressure on myself sometimes, like, maybe I should go back and incubate a little bit more and, like, memorize everything, but I guess I'm not really scared about if people think that I'm good enough or not. I just feel the desire to move on. Part of it's selfish. I want to be inspired from a new place. I love traveling, and I think that I get a lot of inspiration when I'm on the road, and especially when I'm in a new place. And I'm ready for that at this point in time in my life. There's really no thing that would keep me in the Midwest at this point in time. So I guess I'm kind of feeling like if I'm going to make the move, it should probably be now.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just touching on the negativity idea, like you talk to artists of any kind and or performers in any field. A lot of them will tell you that you can have 25, 30, hundreds of people tell you how much you love it, how much they love your whatever your art form is. And there will be that one person who gives you that shitty 1-star rating on iTunes and writes a scathing review, and guess what? Guess which one you will remember? That one.
Yep.
But it's important to figure out how to push that off, and what I often hear: don't believe your best reviews and don't believe your worst reviews.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to believe my best reviews though.
Right. I know.
Yeah. But yeah, so the idea is kind of like moving on is to like submerge yourself in some ways a trial by fire. I mean, if you are going to do it, you just have to pick yourself up and do it.
Yeah.
And whether it works out or not, I have no doubt that, you'll be successful in whatever area of performance you choose, but like I can't imagine anything worse than for you or for me than being 38 years old working a desk job in a call center or wherever, really. I mean, that's just one example, and thinking, when I was 27 I could have done this thing, and maybe it would have been good, but now here I am. I have a divorce and 2 kids.
Right.
And I physically can't. So it's really important to, even if you just get that little sliver of light, to grab it as hard as you can.
Absolutely. Jim Carrey actually has a quote. I don't know exactly. Which one
I know which quote
you're
talking about.
It's like you could fail. There's always a chance of failure, but you might as well fail at something that you're passionate about than go for the safe route and then fail.
Mm-hmm.
Or, maybe if you don't fail at the safe route, maybe you are successful in living a very safe life, but you will always have that.
And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no.
But
no,
it
not at all. I think
it won't
if you're
be
wired to make rash decisions, then maybe you should just do it.
Well, moving to New York in this economic climate, pretty rash.
Probably, yeah.
Well, you got to do it now because eventually no one will be able to afford to.
Right.
So where have you, outside of just like the open mic circuit back home, where have you been playing recently?
Well, I've recently gotten into a few venues in Cincinnati that I had kind of had my eye on ever since I started writing, and I've gotten to perform at some of these destinations that
They are
Motor Pub is down in the OTR district in downtown Cincinnati. That was really exciting for me to get to play. I played a solo show there, and then I also got to play at the Southgate House Revival, which is over in Covington, Kentucky, just across the river. That was very exciting to get to do that too. And then I have been branching out into parts of Kentucky and into Indianapolis and Indiana, and I've made some connections up in, further into Ohio. So I'm just kind of slowly starting to branch out into the tri-state area. So that's exciting.
the Midwestern tri-state
The
area
Midwestern tri-state
is
area.
Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, right?
Yes.
See, here if you say the tri-state area, it means a very different thing.
Right. I picked up on that last time. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, why do you know about the
I know,
Midwest?
yeah.
Nope. New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
That's different.
Very different. So tell me a little bit more about your songs. I mean, you already kind of spoke a little bit about your influences, Brandy Carlisle, Ritter, and the like. But when you're, what in life inspires you? A lot of your songs tend towards a more of a sad, a sad, sweet vibe, which is great to listen to. It's very enjoyable. So, like, what kind of pushes you in that direction? And if I'm totally off base with what my characterization of this, please correct me.
No, I think you're right. I guess I enjoy a good story, and so I think I try to lean towards storytelling, and oftentimes I think sad stories are more interesting to listen to than happy ones. But I do have a few happy songs, but I don't really know. I feel even though I have a bubbly disposition, I definitely feel things very deeply, and I'm affected emotionally by a lot of what I see around me, and that tends to come out. And I know that I mentioned how songwriting is kind of like music therapy for me. I think when I'm upset about something, I sit down and I write about it, and that's kind of how I get through the tough stuff in my life, is just by sitting down and writing about it. So I think that sad, sweet characterization that you said is totally accurate, because I definitely emote through the songs. What inspires me to write, I guess everything inspires me. Yeah.
So, first week in New York.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
How am I feeling? I feel good. I like it a lot. It slightly terrifies me, but I think that's kind of what I'm looking for at this point in time in my life, because I feel like I've grown very comfortable in the Midwest, and this city is so fascinating to me, just on a historical level, and also it just is so vast. I've never really experienced anything like it. When the bus came up on the skyline, I was like, my breath was taken away. I'd never seen anything like that. And New York City skyline is definitely the most beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But
you mean the cornfields of Indiana don't really do it for you anymore?
They have their own beauty, and they will always inspire me. And I've definitely mentioned corn in at least 3 of my songs.
Fun fact about that: if you're mentioning corn and ruralness in any of your songs, you'll fit right in.
Perfect.
Well, I mean, you think about it. I met, a lot of people in their mid-20s that I meet here. Very few of them are from here.
Right.
Everyone's coming from somewhere else. They're bringing their own perspectives to the art that they're trying to create. So it's so from what you've seen and heard so far, assuming you follow through on your plans of eventually living here in addition to just coming here,
Right.
What have you seen and heard that leads you to think that, did you feel like you can do it, you can fit in, you can, grow?
Yeah, absolutely.
And flourish,
already,
if you will.
Yeah. No, I think, I've heard just in the last couple days, I've heard so many wonderful musicians, and I've been inspired by them, and I've definitely heard things that I like, that I would like to aspire to, add into what it is that I already do. But I definitely do not feel in any way that I wouldn't fit in. So while it's been challenging and inspiring since I've been here, it's also been confirming, because I feel like this would be a good place for me to come and, I'm coming in here, but I think that I could continue to go up if I just surround myself with these people that I've already heard over the last few days,
I just want you to want you to know that those visual cues that you're doing with your hands fit in so well. So we were talking about that you're putting out an EP this fall. So have you decided? You have your band of guys that you play with back in Cincinnati. So what's that going to be all about?
Well, right now I'm still in the recording demo stage, so I've recorded about 20 of my songs, and we're going to do one more recording session. This is all just me. I haven't even brought in my guys yet. I'm going to do another probably 10 to 15 songs, and then I'm going to sit down with the producer and with the recording engineer, and we're going to figure out what kind of aesthetic it is that I want to go for. And I already kind of have the songs in mind that I think I want to be on the EP. But the problem is that I write almost every day. And so every time I come out with a new song, I'm like, oh man, maybe this should be on it. Yeah. So I think it's going to be, the most challenging part is going to be to just pick the 6 songs that I really want to be on there. But yeah, so we'll just get together for about a week in September and just try to get it done. I'm excited.
So when you're playing with your full band, how is that different than from what you do soloistically?
Well, there are definitely songs that I do as a soloist that I have not brought to the band that I think wouldn't make sense to play with the band. So I have probably about 25 songs that I have brought to these guys, because we've really only been playing together for a few months at this point in time. But yeah, there are definitely songs that when I'm writing it, if I can hear them, already in my head, then I know that that's going to be a band song. And those don't always tend to be autobiographical, I guess. So a lot of the solo stuff is definitely more kind of singer-songwriter. Yeah, more personal. And then the stuff that I tend to bring to the guys, I wouldn't say it's lighter, but it it definitely lends itself well more towards, you know, playing in a bar for 3 hours. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, you've got 3 more days in the city, and you'll be performing more. Do you already have some dates lined up for performing when you get back?
Well, I know that Monday, September 29th, I'm going to be...
You will be back in New York City.
I will be
at
back.
Super Collider.
At Super
in
Collider.
Park Slope in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
As a featured act. Playing a half hour of music for some...
For tips.
Some for tips and for some dirty bearded hipsters, which will be fun.
Sign me up.
So September is really going to be about the recording and the producing.
Yeah, and then my goal is, you know, I'll have the finished EP by then. So next time I come back to New York, I'll have an EP.
You'll have materials, and we can.
Great.
No, you can pass those around to people. Should be fun. Awesome. Well, I think feel good.
Yeah.
Great. I think. Well, thanks for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
It's fun.
It was fun.
All right, so you want to play a song for us now?
Sure.
What are you gonna play?
How about Bonnie and Clyde?
Sounds great.
Cool.
Enjoy.
outside. Maybe smoke a little, but we'll love alive. I'll be your body, won't you be my Clyde? I wanna lay down on God's green earth, look up at the stars and my heart might burst. We may not have the money, but we have the time. I'll be your body, won't you be my Clyde? I wanna be the one you wrap your arms around tonight. I wanna be the one that swings beside you when you fight. Wanna be the one that holds your hand when you're knocked down with no place to land. Bonnie says to Clyde, it'll be alright. I'll be your body, won't you be my Clyde? I wanna change the world around us, boy. We can leave a mark if we jump in the car. I'll sing to you in the dead of the night, 'cause I'm your body and you're my Clyde. I wanna grow older with you, boy. I'll have gray hair, but you'll stay right there. I'll be next to you every day and night. I'll be your body, won't you be my Clyde? I wanna be the one you wrap your arms around tonight. I wanna be the one that swings beside you when you fight. Wanna be the one that holds your hand when you're knocked down with no place to land. Bonnie says to Clyde, it'll be alright.